Hey, Tyson here. Welcome back to this week's Max Law Tech Tips, where we give you fresh tech tips to help you run your law practice. Today, I'm going to cover something that affects us all, and that's how to supercharge your Wi-Fi speeds. Before we dig in, though, Jim and I, we want to share something with you that's pretty special. We created a unique roadmap called Maximum Lawyer in Minimum Time to help you in building the law firm of your dreams. While it's typically only for guild members, we're going to give it to our podcast listeners. All you have to do is text stage 1 to 314-501-9260, and we will give you stage 1 of Maximum Lawyer in Minimum Time. The rest of the course is reserved only for guild members, but we will give you stage 1, which is the foundational part of Maximum Lawyer Minimum Time, absolutely free. So just text stage 1 to that number and you will get it. I know you're going to get a lot out of it. And I would love to hear from you if you do. So just text us and I'd love to hear from you. All right. So let's get into today's topic. I was on a video call the other day with our office administrator, Kristen, and her call quality was actually amazing compared to what it used to be. And it really got me thinking about how Wi-Fi, how much it really affects how we practice. And that really led me down a rabbit hole of finding out the best solutions to increasing internet speeds. Because like it or not, our law practices and our daily lives are intricately tied to the internet. So fast and reliable Wi-Fi connection, it's not just a luxury anymore. It's an absolute necessity in the things we do. And we've all faced that agony of those dropped video calls or even phone calls these days with VoIP phones, or those endless waits for whenever you're trying to upload that document or upload that file, that video. For those of you that record videos, it can be kind of a pain if you've got a bunch of videos that you need to upload and it says it's going to take overnight to get it done. I think we've all maybe been there. But before we get into the solutions I've got for you, I think it's essential to get an idea about what internet speeds you're paying for and your actual current internet speeds. That's really important. So what we're talking about is what you're paying for. So you go to the website, you sign up for a plan, and they say you're getting X for your speed. But then your actual speeds are different. And what I want you to do is I want you to Google. This is easy. I'm going to give you two options. One, and this is what I usually do, just Google internet speed test. So just type in internet speed test, and there's a test right there in the browser. You can also do it from speedtest.net. That's another one. Both of those are reliable. Do it at both and see if there's any similarities or inconsistencies there. If they're fairly close, then it's probably fairly accurate as to what the readings you're going to get. And even try it from different areas in your office and in your house and from different computers. You might be really surprised as to what you see, and you might be able to narrow down the issues that you're having. And you're going to probably see two different speeds. You're going to see an upload speed and a download speed. Don't worry about the differences right now. I'm not going to get into that. There are differences, but for right now, it's just important to know the information. And once we establish this baseline, then we can figure out if you need to make some changes. All right. And there's a big difference between, if there's a big difference between what you're paying for and your actual speeds, then you need to start making those tweaks. And if they are fairly close, which they're probably not, but if they're fairly close, then you may not need to make any changes. All right. So here's number one. It's the simplest. It's so simple. It almost feels like you're cheating. It's just reboot your router. All right. There is this sort of this trick where you unplug it for 30 seconds, and you hold the power button down, you release it for 30 seconds. It's kind of this thing that this guy, we were having slow internet speeds a year ago. He was teaching me. I'm not going to get into that. Just unplug the damn thing. Unplug it for about a minute or so, and then plug it back in. And you might be just shocked as to how much faster your speeds are. It's kind of crazy. That little reset can work wonders for you, and it's super, super easy. The next thing is it's more complicated, it's more expensive, but upgrading your router's age might just be showing, and it might be having an effect on your speeds. An older router can struggle a lot with the newer demands of these faster, modern broadband packages that are out there. So yeah, you may just have an old router that you need to replace. It might just be as simple as calling your internet service provider. You might see ISP, you might hear that before, but just calling them and letting them know what router you have, and they might be able to tell you. If you're using one of the routers from the company, you need to, I'm just going to tell you right now, you need to replace it. You need to replace it because it's going to be a junky router. They use some of the worst routers around. So just get one of the expensive routers. It's more than worth it. The next thing I want to talk about is device disconnect. Having dozens of things tapped into the Wi-Fi all at once can be very problematic. Every single gadget that you have connected to your Wi-Fi, that could be your smartphone, smart TVs, tablets, a lot of things that you may not have even used in ages, all of those consume bandwidth. And one by one, if you switch them off, you're gonna be able to observe the speed changes. It's a really powerful thing to do. Just start disconnecting thing. And you might just stumble on a bandwidth hog that you need to get rid of. The next thing is use an Ethernet cable. And we sometimes forget that wires still exist. And many times just using an Ethernet cable can save you a lot of trouble. Sometimes you don't need a Wi-Fi connection. If you're at a desktop, you're not going to need a Wi-Fi. Just plug it into the wall. I'm using actually a computer now that I have plugged in the wall. My office computer is plugged into the wall. I don't use Wi-Fi. And a wired connection to your router is way faster. It's much more stable than Wi-Fi. And it can't be affected by other devices. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, the downside is that it limits where you can go, and it can be a little less convenient, but it can be worth it when it comes to speeds. The next thing is just strategic router repositioning. So the position of your router has a lot to do with your Wi-Fi, and it can even break your connection. So for a stronger, more consistent signal, just move it to a more centralized location, or a more elevated spot in your home or your office. Those walls and those floors that can impede your signals, so keep the path as clear as possible. And if you have dead or slow zones in your house, you might want to think about where and how far you want the Wi-Fi to broadcast, and where you want to position the different computers, especially if you have a larger home or a larger office. You're likely better off with a router that can pair with repeaters, because not all routers can. You can get a repeater, and those can broadcast signals into the farthest reaches of wherever your space is. But just know that these repeaters, they're not going to speed up your internet. They're just gonna extend where you can get a signal. Another thing you can look at, this is the next thing, it's cable cleanup. So Ethernet cables, they are many times overlooked, but what you can do is, if you have an old cable, you can just replace it with a newer one, and it should speed up your speeds quite a bit. Just that's what I was talking about earlier, by checking speeds at each location, each computer. It might that may allow you to hone in on what the issue is. Number 7 is firmware updates. So think of firmware as your router's operating system, kind of like on your computer. Keeping this updated is going to make sure that you're going to have that optimal performance and that speed. So make sure you're regularly checking for these updates, and make sure you're updating them on a regular basis. Put something on your calendar to check it on a semi-regular basis. Another thing is, number 8 is change the channel or band of your Wi-Fi signal, because your channel, or your router is broken into different channels, and it uses a specific channel whenever you're using the internet. And what you can do is you can change the channel and the way it communicates with the other devices around your office or your home. And what it'll allow you to do is, it will, let's say, for example, you've got an office next door to someone has a different router, and they are using the same channel. It might affect your speeds. So if you just change the channel, it might solve this problem that you're facing. And then the last thing I want to cover, and this is the coolest thing, it's using electrical wiring as the internet to carry your internet. So an alternate to using extenders is a power line kit. And so digital signals, they can pass through electrical wiring. This is something I didn't know until fairly recently. And a power line device it's designed to take advantage of it. So several manufacturers, they make these power line networking kits. Netgear is one of the major ones. TP-Link is another one. And essentially what happens is you connect a power line plug into your router, then put the plug into a wall socket, and then you add another power line plug in any other room in your house or your office, and it can provide a wired or a wireless connection to that room. And there's going to be some drops in speeds, but it's a simple and a pretty effective option if you're having issues getting internet to certain areas of your office. And so unless your home is older, you should have the electrical wiring that supports it. All right, so there you have it. Here are some golden fixes for you to get your Wi-Fi running faster and at peak performance. So hopefully those slow buffering issues that you're having, those go away. All right, so stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, remember, imperfect action will always beat perfect action. Take care.